Hello, everyone. So I figured, pardon me, that since I didn't actually make that granny square last time, that we would let's see here, actually make one this time. The last time was just intended to be a lesson to you, to remind you that not everything is going to go your way, and that was kind of a joke of sorts. To teach you patience by making you patiently sit through and do something, and then not actually be able to do it. This time, however, I don't need to teach you that lesson, because you've learned it, of course. So, what we're going to do is, to actually make the granny square, we're going to do the same thing as we normally do to start with your crochet. And we're going to go like this and make a small chain that'll hold about 12 stitches. So there we go. I apologize if there's some noise in the background. I'm not exactly sure what that is. Something in the basement. Probably my dehumidifier or something. So anyway, we get our circle moving here. And again, we're going to do this with the what they call the magic circle. Going to go right through the actual hole in it. And let's take a look here. We're going to do it with the half double, let's say. So that counts as our first. And then we'll add the second one. You know what? It looks better if I do it with fully double there. Actually. So we're going to do that instead. Add one more. And then again, around, through, pull it up towards you, go through two, and then go through two again. And you want to keep them relatively tight against one another here. So do the same thing once more. And then you'll see that you have 3 stitches on here so far. And that's what you want, because now you're going to make the corner, and the corner is going to be 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. And then you're going to do another 3 of the double crochets. 1, 2, 3. And you want to make sure those are, reasonably close together for whatever reason, to make it easier for you to see and everything. Let's try that. Does it look any better? Yeah, I think that looks okay. So then after you get another 3 on there, put another 3 on here. 1, 2, 3. Then make another 3. Double crochets rather. 1, 2, 3. We got some snow today. That was kind of nice. Oh, I dropped it. That's okay. There's the third one. And then we'll want another 3 stitches for the corner again. And then 3 more to finish it. 1, 2, and 3. And this is also a very good way to practice the tension. Make sure you're getting it right. Now, as you can see, the only thing we have left to put on here, and these are a little far away from the first stitch, but it doesn't matter, they'll come together all right, is we need those other 3. 1, 2, but we're not going to make the third one because we're going to slip it around the first stitch on the other side. And again, the slip stitch is you just pull some material through both stitches that are already on it. And as you can see, this will be the start of the granny square. Don't worry too much about the fact that this doesn't look quite like the others. And let's see, we got a couple messages here. Denise says, may I learn from you? I used to knit, but crocheting just seems too complicated. Where am I? I disappeared. Guess it was me, lol. Alright, sorry about that. I apologize if there are networking difficulties. That happens sometimes. But yeah, let's learn along together. And again, I've got a couple other videos there that go into the basics of how to cast on and everything. But again, I'll walk you through every step that you need to know here as well. Again, when you're casting on, it's really the same as making the stitches in the first place in crochet. So again, we're going to do the half double here, which means I'm going to build up 4 because I like the way it looks better. Some people like 3 for double crochet. 3. And the 4th one makes the first stitch that'll go into the next one. That is kind of big though, actually. So anyway, what we're going to do here is we need the other 3 stitches to go right on to cross, or 2 stitches rather. Because when you're going across, as you'll see in a moment, you're going to run your 3 stitches through what will become 2 stitches here. So then I'm going to make my half double and come into this circle here. And again, the half double, pardon me, is when you take and you put some yarn around it and you go through your stitch. In this case, the stitch is the opening. And a double is when you pull that through 2 of them and 2 again. And this will all make more sense once we actually get it done here. Do 2 more of those. Crocheting is not that hard though. Some people will say it's simpler, actually. Just because you only have the 1 hook rather than 2 needles. And the basic stitches are probably simpler in crochet. So again, for the corner this time, and this will make sense, we want 3 stitches on there, because that's what I like. You may find that you like the way something else looks better. And then through the same hole as we put these 3, we're going to run these 3. And everything is going to be basically in sets of 3s here, except for the sides, which will be 2s. 1, 2, 3. And you should be getting the basic idea for how this is going to look soon. Now, since we're going across one of these, that's where we're going to put in 2 stitches. And that'll give it kind of that V shape you're seeing there a little bit, but it's easier to see once we get it going. So 1, 2, and then another double crochet. 1, 2, and again, the crochets are going through the loops we're leaving, the spaces, they call them, on the corners of the row before. So there's the 3rd one. And whenever you hit a corner, you make a corner for a granny square. Then you make, 3 more. 1, 2, 3. And do be sure to ask questions if you want. There goes a double crochet right in. And I apologize, there's another double crochet. I may have said half double this time when I meant double. Sometimes words stick in my mouth funny. And there's a 3rd one to finish that corner. So you can kind of see what's going on now. And it'll make more sense as we get around it. Now we're back across one of these again. So that's where the 2 slips come on, the 2 stitches. Then that double right back into there. 3 times. As it were. And then we want another corner, which is 3 stitches the way I'm doing it. And then another 3 double to complete the corner. 1, 2, 3. Now a couple quick pointers when you're making this, and you want to make that double stitch. You'll take, and if you catch this, you'll find that sometimes you accidentally go through all 3, not a big deal. You can just kind of bring it right back there, and then you get yourself straightened out. So now you can see we're on this again. So we'll throw another 2 right there. Knitting is a lot of fun, though. Knitting is a lot of fun. Then we need a double into the next loop here. And again, there are all sorts of different granny squares that you can make. And there makes 3 for the first part of that corner. And again, since we're on the corner now, we'll put in the 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. And then we put in 2 more because our third one is actually this. Right here. So, 1, 2, and the third one is the one we're joining to right there. So we go up the number of stitches we wanted in the first place. And I believe it was right about here. And then slip 1 stitch right through. And slipping again just means to go through both, whatever you're pulling it through and whatever it's on. I think I missed there a little bit. I'm going to go 1 stitch higher on that, actually. Next time I may only make that with an extension of 3 rather than 4. Again, it's all to taste, and the way I'm doing it here, that should be the one I want. And again, you can see when I'm going through that stitch, I need both of the top parts of it. Or you should be able to if the network is all right. And slip it right through. Yeah, that looks a little better. I got it a little bit loose there, so it's not perfect. But this is fabric art. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then you start to get the idea. I got a little bit loose right here. And so that's why it doesn't look right. And that's why it doesn't pull as tightly as it should. So, to fix that, we're just going to pull it out right back to where I screwed up. Because again, patience is a virtue when you're doing this kind of thing. And that's how you undo crochet. Very simple to work backward if you need to. And now I'm going to put those double crochets right back in. 1, oops, 2, 3, bloop, bloop. And then do the 3 for the corner. Ooh. And then 1, 2. And the third one is the one that's already made. Right about, yeah, that one is fine. Oops, I missed a couple strands there. I don't know if that came out too well on the camera. But I got between the yarn itself. And again, you don't really want to do that because you want your stitches to be whole. They'll hold up a lot better. So there, that looks a little bit better, I think. And then we're on the second row of our granny square. Denise says, I have blankets my grandmother made for my son 27 years ago, and they still look brand new. She made granny squares most of the time, though. Colorful was her favorite. There are a lot of good colorful yarns out there. And if you're making something, I think also that color is the best way to go about it. So yeah, that's your basic granny square. You can continue that out as far as you want, or you can make a bunch of those together. And in fact, we'll go ahead and continue this once more around. 1, 2, I think 3. Probably going to look better there. Yeah, that's fine. And now you can see we're in the space. So this, what you've just cast on for the next row, is actually going to count as the first one of your set of 3 that's going to essentially match this one. It's amazing how long things like this can last if they are well made. But there we go. That's the first 3 then, as you can see. I'm going to do 2 since I'm going across this. Denise says, what size hook do you use with what size yarn? That's a matter of preference partly. But here I'm using an F or a 5, which is a 3 3/4 millimeter, which works well for this yarn, which is cotton, sugars and cream, I think. I don't know. Let me see if I can find a label for that, and I'll tell you for sure. So anyway, that is the yarn right there, Lily Brand Sugar and Cream. It's approximately a size 4. It's a medium yarn. It's made in Canada from 100% USA cotton. So it's good, fun yarn to use for making dishcloths or anything you like to make out of cotton. And again, that's not an endorsement or anything. It's just good yarn, common yarn. Well-made American and Canadian yarn. So again, we got the 2 slip stitches on there. And the doubles, we'll want 3 of them for each side of the corner. 3. And the nice thing about this yarn, you don't even have to take it off the skein. You don't have to turn it into a ball. You can just pull out the center part and you're ready to knit. And away you go. And that's what I'm doing right here, in fact. I just have the yarn free and I'm knitting right off of it. And I've got it in, like I said, I just keep a container and you put the yarn inside of it and the yarn just bounces around in it. And that's how I prefer to go about it. Nothing fancy unless you need it for show, as I would say. And there's no need to be fancy when you just want something to hold your yarn. Pardon me. So, for the corner, we're going to slip 3. We're going to go 1, 2, and then 2, bloop, bloop, 3, bloop, oops, bloop. And then we got the corner for the next one moving there. If I want to, I can take and get that end out of my way right now if I felt like it. And again, to do that, you want to find a smaller hook than what you're actually using. So for example, this is a D, which is a 3 or about 3 1/4. Should be fine. And for working your ends in, Tom Owen says, hello, bro. How's it going, Tom? I haven't talked to you in a while, but I'm knitting now. Or crochet, rather. because it's hooks. It's a good lot of fun. So again, when you want to work that in, you'll take the hook through the existing stitch and pull it through with a smaller hook than whatever you're currently using. I know it doesn't show up well there, but this is 0.5 millimeter smaller, and that's enough to get in through the stitches I want to get through, and just pull the yarn right through. And it doesn't take a whole lot of this just to keep it cinched. If you're familiar with knitting, for example, you'll know that 4 or 5 stitches is more than enough to keep a knot from unraveling. And so anyway, where we were here, we're on top of this, which means we want 1, 2 stitches for the bridge, I like to call them. Then your half or your double goes in, 1, and that one's a little loose. Gonna do it again. Again, that's the most fun part of this, is learning how to get it exactly how you want. And I'm making sure to exaggerate this and show you as clearly as I can. That way you can learn with the most expediency. Because, you know, you don't have all the time in the world. You want to learn this. You want to get stuff done. You want to have fun with it. And 2 more slip across. Again, because you're bridging that. And then 3 into the corner for the first half of it. 1, 2, 3. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. That's why we're here. I'm on the corner now, so that's going to be 3. And a 1, 2, bloop, 3 right into the corner. And then we got 2 across. 1, 2. And then 3 doubles right back into the next bridge that's already made on the row before. And once you get some practice, this will come pretty naturally to slip. And then you'll be making these squares in no time, as big as you like. And again, this will be 3 for the first part of the corner. 1, 2, 3. And then do the same thing again for your 3 doubles. 1. And again, for those just tuning in, if you're watching this live, such as Tom, the half double, or the double stitch rather, is when you take the yarn around once, go through your stitch, pull it back, go through 2 of them and through the remaining 2. So round and then through 2, and then through 2. And you can see it's starting to take its shape. The more rows you put in, the more square it is going to look as you go out. Now, as I said, I'm using a double stitch here. We're going to try something a little different on the next one for a little contrast, just so you can see the difference the other stitch can make. 1, 2, 3, and then 2 to bridge across. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 to make the corner. 1, 2, and then 3 to finish the corner, and then 1, 2 to bridge it into that first stitch right there. And our granny square gets a little bit bigger. You can see the size of my hand there, but none of you actually, apart from Tom, know what my hand looks like and how big it is. So instead, we'll show you we've made approximately 5 inches or about 13 centimeters there. And if our tension is correct, we've also made about 13 or about 5 inches, 4 3/4, along both dimensions. So the fact that it's coming square means that the tension is staying pretty decently. Tom says, nice. Crocheted coasters make the best ones too. For one, they don't tend to stick. That's very true. I've actually been working on those for the local coffee shop in town, because they wanted me to make some so they can sell them or put them in gift baskets and that kind of thing. I've got another small batch made up. I'm going to take to them this weekend on probably Saturday. So Denise says, and they last for years. Just toss them in the wash and good as new. That's what I like about crocheted coasters. Indeed. So as you can imagine, that's a little bigger than you might set a regular coffee mug on. In fact, I have some coffee to get, so let me grab that and I'll throw my mug on it and we can see how big it is. So I go across the kitchen to get my coffee. And we set it right there. And this is a pretty neat coffee mug. It's got yarn on the side. I don't remember where I got that exactly, but it's neat. And it keeps your coffee elevated right off the table. Good coffee. So now what we're going to do is actually unslip that one because I want to join the red in here. And I'm going to change the stitch from a half double to a single. Or rather a double is what we were doing. To a single is what I want to do. So let's get some of that slack. And again, if you want to join the yarn, I'm going to go through that stitch right about there. But then I'm going to pull the red instead of the blue teal color there. Oops. Hair tight, I guess. But a tight doesn't hurt so much. And then I don't actually want the green anymore. So we're going to snip it and save it for another project. Tom says, I'm still enjoying that crocheted throw you gave me. I have it over my couch. How long did that one take? I don't remember. I don't think it took all that long, though, actually. I don't remember. Because a lot of times when I make something like that that's bigger or whatever, I'll spend a few nights on it or, you know, a week or whatever. That kind of thing. So all the time added together, I'm not sure. I might spend, you know, half an hour one night, and 2 hours another night, and an hour one night. But if I did it all at once, it'd probably go a little faster kind of thing. Also, it's not really fair because sometimes I'm watching YouTube when I make them and I add that time to it. Even if my hands aren't strictly going, kind of like now. We've been on camera about 30 minutes and I've knit for about 20 of it, I think. Or crocheted, rather. So again, I'm only going to take this up one because we're doing single. Yeah, one I think is, might as well be two. And then I need two for the, 3 for the bridge, I think. Well, yeah. Since I'm shrinking the size of the stitch, I'm going to make it bridge further. And then a single will just come around and through. And there's the stitch. 1, 2, 3. And you can kind of see how it's going to join itself together there. In fact, I'm going to do 4 into each of those, just because it's a different size of stitch. little looser than I like right there. And you can see how it's going to look a little different when I'm done with it. That's not going to hurt anything, though. And Tom says, well, it's pretty big at that. The stitches are large, though it functions well. Thank you again for that. I'm glad you are enjoying it, Tom. This is a very fun craft. And again, to bridge it, I'm going to do 3. This is single, so I take none of the yarn around. And I'm going to put in 1, 2, just the same as the other. 3, because the corners are always going to be crowded anyway. So it's not as big a deal if it doesn't look as tight. And for this, I'm still going to do the 3 because we're still increasing the corner the same size. It doesn't need to cover any extra. 1, 2, 3. And there's the corner on that. So you can see how the spaces are going to be much tighter. And you're going to have a kind of a tighter corner there. And it's going to look different as we get around it. 1, 2, 3. And then right up through. 1, 2, 3, 4. But yeah, one of these days again, Tom, we got to get together and do some stuff and go somewhere and all that fun stuff. 1, 2, 3. And then 1. Oops. Accidentally didn't get that right. 1. And again, I like to slide them all off to one side if I'm doing them tighter. Just a personal thing. 2, 3, 4. Also, doing the extra one will give it a slight bit of extra curl to it, as you can see there, which I think is also rather aesthetically pleasing. Yeah, it's 7 by 2.5, two-tone in red, in case you forgot. 7 foot by 2.5 foot. Yeah, it's a nice thing. Throws are a lot of fun. 1, 2, 3, and then. Ooh, I should have done that in... That's right. 1. Bloop. 2. 3. So what do you think of that snow we got, Tom? Then 3 around for the corner, because we want to keep that tight. 1. 2. 3. Then 3 across the bridge. Yeah, just today, the snow we got. I thought it was kind of neat. I had to drive home in it. It was a lot of fun. It wasn't covering the roads too bad or anything. Good snow for driving in my opinion. 1, 2... And it's good to get in the habit of counting like this if you're going to take up a skill like this. 3, 4. And we're getting somewhere with it. I think that's going to look all right. And then another 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we want our 4 in the next bridge there. 1, 2. Oh, I think I've been doing that wrong. 3, 4. That's not the end of the world. It'll still look all right. 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 3 stitches for the corner. Yeah, my dexterity though, LOL. Denise says, I am in southwestern Oklahoma. We have no snow, but it gets cold when North Dakota leaves the doors open. Well, I can imagine. Yeah, we probably are going to get about an inch tonight, I think. If we haven't already got it. I haven't looked outside in a little while. We're up here in northeast Ohio. Up in the snow belt, just barely. Although I guess actually we are closer to the snow belt than I've been some years. So that's to be expected. Good coffee. 1, 2, 3. Sometimes my dexterity does not work either. And then 1, whoops, just like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I may have done the first part of that wrong. I don't think so, though. It looks all right. Anyway, I made those a little loose, but I don't mind. 3 across again, because we're running it so much closer with a single stitch. 1, 2, no, there. 3. Oops, a little wider than I like there. 3, 4, and we're good to go. Pardon me. 1, 2, 3. But yeah, it's a little cold today. It only got down to about 30. 1, 2, 3, and then we'll take 3 around the corner, and 1, 2, 3, and you might see me doing this once in a while. What I'm doing there is pulling the tension loose on the ball of yarn so that it slips and gives a little more slack outside the other edge of my hand. Now I could have taken that and knitted it in, but I wanted to run the red underneath so it wouldn't contrast. 1, whoops, 2, 3, and then we'll need 3 stitches here because the 4th one is already in there. 1, 2, 3, and the 4th one would just pick right up. And then it makes it look a little different. If I change the number of stitches that go into it, I have 4 of the red in each slot instead of 3 of the green. And you can see it makes it wavier, bumpier almost. It's kind of like a 1-stitch increase in your knitting, except it's different, you know. Now, while I'm sitting here, that's about the last thing I think we're going to do on that. For tonight, anyway. Add some of the happy juice there. Because why not? And then all that leaves us off is the part you probably already know, but let's talk about a couple different ways of finishing off what you're doing. So the first thing I want to do with this is binding it. And Denise says 61 degrees here, cloudy, about 30s at night. That is a little bit warmer than here. We were down to 0 Fahrenheit the other day. That was fun. Not quite as cold as Canada some days, but cold nonetheless. So if you're not familiar, since you don't crochet, like I said, the first way that you can hide all of this is simply to draw it in with a smaller hook. So the first thing we'll do is just that with this green, for example. Oops, I'm sliding off a little bit there. We'll caught one of the stitches, didn't I? Okay, we won't go through exactly there. But we'll go close. And you can just follow those through wherever it makes sense to do so, keeping the colors consistent and all that good stuff. The other thing you can do is to get out your big old bag of tricks, if you happen to have one, is to grab up one of these, stick that back to the side. These are my tapestry needles or darning needles or whatever you want to call them. Here's a fairly large one. By comparison, if I can pick it up, maybe. The one beside it that probably doesn't really show up very well is a normal sewing needle that I keep just in case. There are various sizes of needles that you can use. Your darning needles are generally blunt. So as always, you want to be kind of careful with them. But your darning needles are not going to stick you. In general, again, be very careful. But these are dull, so you're not going to readily stick yourself with them. And the point of that is to make it easy to go through the stitches of this. So this is probably the easier way, I guess. You'll also use these if you want to join two different fabrics together, for example. Because what you can do, apart from regular sewing, is you can join the stitches together through the stitches themselves, rather than splitting them or using a machine or anything, to bring two pieces of fabric together and join them so that they appear not to have a seam. So for example, let's see here. I could take it back out, I guess. How long of a piece is good to tuck in? It really depends on what you're doing with it. But generally speaking, if you got something like this that isn't going to get, tossed around too much, you're going to wash it maybe once a month or once a year, or it's going to be a decorative piece on the back of your couch or something, then you only really need just a few stitches to hold it together. Because for the most part, once you get more than about 5 or 6 on something like this, then the tension of the stitching itself is going to keep it together. So for example, if I want to take it through 4 of those, I can do so in one shot. And then maybe I want to take it through a couple more here just to be sure. Then I can pull the yarn out. Sorry, you might not have seen that. Let's try it again. I keep forgetting, if I move too close to myself, the camera does not pick it up. The other answer to that question is, if you're making something like a hat, or a sock, or anything that's going to be high use, getting cleaned more often, or just generally getting stretched more and deformed more and that sort of thing, you want at least enough that if it pulls backward through a couple times, you're not going to be left out in the cold, so to speak. So, for example, when you trim this off, no matter what you do, you're going to have a little piece that kind of hides there. Right about there. And the idea is, that as this fabric naturally just stretches and pulls and stretches and pulls and stretches, eventually it might come back out here. Right there. And you want to have that to the inside of whatever you do, but you also want to have enough there that if it pulls back to, for example, here, that you can perhaps just snip it off if you don't want to run it back in. But you don't want to have so little that you can't simply just, that it won't keep your stitch secure that you initially put in there to hold the stitch from unraveling. Because this, generally with knitting and crochet, you don't want to knot anything except perhaps the very last bit. If you're joining them together, you can actually just run them together if there's no big gaps like there is here. And then you don't even have to tie it in, because it'll just be bound off as you run it. So what I mean there is, if we pretend that this one is my working yarn, and this is the tail I want to get rid of, I can actually just run that right on the top edge, basically. And I can just pull my stitches around it and bind it down between those stitches. And it will generally stay there, and you'll want to do that, maybe a few inches at the most. But if you're not doing that, then it depends on how tightly you bind them as you're taking them back in through here. Because that's another thing you can do when you're trying to take in the tail and keep it from being shown and all that. You can actually do like, let's say for example, go through 2 or 3 stitches. I need a little smaller tail there. And then go back through the one right before it and kind of do it like a back stitch through 2 of them. And then do the same thing again. And then maybe do the same thing once more. Then just run it in a couple stitches, just to keep the tail hidden. And as long as you've got it on a relatively inconspicuous spot, you're not really ever going to notice it, and it's going to hold much tighter because it's kind of bound like a knot, if you know what I'm saying. But again, part of it is just down to preference and what you like. But the more actively it's going to be used, the more I would recommend tucking it in general. Now, as you can see, I have the other tail here. I'm just going to run it basically right in through together as well with the other one, kind of pulling it down so the knot for the bind off is hidden a little bit. And since that's actually got a knot in it, I'm not going to worry too much about it. More than 1 or 2 stitches. And there we are. We've made a thing. And as you can see, the thing turned out okay. It gives you something to stick your coffee on. And then you just spent your time having a lot of fun pulling yarn around in circles with a hook, doing crochet. And I think that's going to be it for today. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments after the video, or you can find me on Twitter. The link should be down below, or it should be also on my channel page, I think. And that's going to be it for today. Another, while I'm thinking about it, another useful thing to have is a tape measure. And this will get more important as we make other little crafts here. And Tom says those two colors go well together. Very cheery. Yeah, they do almost look like Christmas on there, don't they? And Denise says, thank you, I'll try it again. Now that I have grandkids to make stuff for, ha ha ha. That is a good idea. This is the other thing I was going to say. This is Hechtmaß out of West Germany, so it gives you an idea of the date. I got this from my godparent when she passed away. But it's got the inches on both sides, so we don't care about the metric so much. But this is really good having a tape like this for measuring, like you want a pair of mittens and you want to know how big it is. And it'll tell you almost right away. If you're wanting to measure someone's head, for example, for a hat, also very useful. Again, rubber bands are your best friend when you're knitting, because you can use them for keeping the balls of yarn together. You can use them for binding things like this. And if you're knitting, you can use them on the ends of the points as stitch holders, or whatever you want to call them, in case you happen to run out or not have any of these. Eventually we're going to get into some knitting with these. Maybe in the next video, I'm not sure yet. We may do one more crochet video before we come back to knitting. And then as we start to advance, let's see, we'll get into these a little bit. I've just started learning these a little bit more. They're double point needles. They're a lot of fun. You use them for things like socks. And they're a good lot of fun to play with. So anyway, I suppose that's going to be it for today. If you enjoyed that, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and all that good stuff. And as always, this has been Reverend JR, drinking coffee and crocheting and knitting and signing off. Thanks for tuning in.